Hey guys, welcome back to Flickers of Fear, my movie review series. Now this movie here, Starry Eyes. I might have mentioned it on some other reviews or like some other live streams that I've done and stuff before, because I've actually seen this movie several times, probably like 2, 3, 4 times at this point, and I absolutely adore this movie. And for some reason, I thought that I had already reviewed it for this series, but then when I looked through all my back catalog, I was like, how could I not have talked about this movie? I mean, I guess the thing is, I saw it like a few times like before I started doing these like solo reviews and stuff like that, so maybe that was why maybe it just kind of like fell through the cracks because I thought I'd already done it. But when I looked through there and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I haven't talked about this movie. So I really need to do something about that like as soon as possible, because I really, really do like this movie a lot, and I think that more people should see it. So this movie, it's actually getting on a bit now. It's out, which is crazy. It's almost 10 years old at this point. It came out in 2014, actually premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival in that year. Now, this was actually written and directed by Kevin Kölsch, or Kölsch or something like that. You know, it's got an umlaut, so I'm trying to like pronounce it. I didn't take German, so I don't know how to pronounce it. And Dennis Widmyer, who, you know, pretty well known in the horror community. They also directed the 2019 Pet Sematary remake, which it wasn't all that good, but it wasn't that bad, you know what I mean? But yeah, so they did that. I'm not going to hold that against them, though, because this movie was, like, pretty dynamite. And this movie was actually, this might have been their first movie they directed. I'm not entirely sure, their first full-length movie. And it was actually partially funded through a Kickstarter campaign. And when it came out back in 2014, it got a shit ton of really, really positive press and a lot of buzz. And honestly, like, seeing it, when I finally got around to seeing it, it was pretty easy to see why. What it is, it's essentially an homage to kind of like the classic 60s and 70s era satanic cult kind of movies. I got shades of like Rosemary's Baby or To the Devil a Daughter, something like that. But then there's also an aspect of like a David Lynch dark side of Hollywood type of thing, like in Mulholland Drive or Inland Empire or something like that. So it's almost kind of like those two things put together. And then there's also an aspect of like Cronenbergian body horror in it too. So it's kind of got something for everybody. So this movie, I found this movie the first time I saw it, like I said, I loved it so much that I've seen it a couple times since then. And I mean, it's just really, it's kind of disturbing. It's like really gross, really violent. Also has like a black comedy kind of tinge to it, but not overtly. It's like kind of subtle. And I just really, really got into it. It's fun, but it's also like kind of, like I said, like dark and disturbing and sort of grim. And also kind of a really cynical meditation on sort of like the lengths that people will go to for fame, you know, just the whole soul-sucking nature of the Hollywood system in general, and how having like unfettered ambition can kind of like corrode your soul, essentially. Now, I'm going to say that easily my favorite thing about this movie is the lead performance of Alex Essoe, and this was kind of like her breakout role. She just goes for it in this movie. And I love actresses that do that, particularly in horror, because she makes her protagonist, who is, you know, a fucked up person. I mean, she really has some problems, but she's real grounded and believable still. But at the same time, like, she manages to come off as like sort of sympathetic, but also monstrous. And I think that's like a really good thing to pull off. Like, she does a really good balance with that. And, you know, anybody that's real into horror, you know that she's actually since this movie came out, she's gone on to like a lot more high profile kind of roles. And she's pretty much killed it in every single thing that I've seen her in. She's done some work with Mike Flanagan. She actually had a small role in, you know, the Netflix series Haunting of Bly Manor. And she also played Wendy in Doctor Sleep, you know, the Shining sequel from 2019. And she was actually like really great in that. I really liked her in that. So in Starry Eyes, Alex Essoe plays a girl named Sarah Walker. And she is just one of millions of other young women in LA trying to make it, like, as a movie star. Now, to pay the bills, she actually works at this very dreary, like, Hooters type restaurant, which is called Big Taters. But, you know, obviously she feels like this is just a stopgap and she's destined for much bigger and better things. So she's been kind of going out for a bunch of auditions, but she always gets rejected. And like I said, she has real real bad like insecurity issues and a lot of like deep-seated self-hatred. So a lot of times like she'll go out to an audition and she doesn't get it, and then she kind of goes into these things where she's like pulling out her own hair and like going into these like just psychotic rages and stuff, but nobody sees them but her. Like she does it in secret because she feels like she's failing and she has to like constantly like punish herself and denigrate herself and shit like that. So she's like self-harming essentially. And another thing that's really not helping her mental state, I guess, is all of these quote-unquote friends that she has. Now, she does have a couple friends. She has like a roommate named Tracy and this other guy who's like an indie film director who's like a friend of hers, who are actually like pretty supportive of her. But then she has like these other kind of friends, hangers on like in her group, like, you know what I mean, that are just kind of like, just kind of enjoy like cutting her down or something like that. And there's this one quote-unquote frenemy that she has in particular, who's this real passive-aggressive bitch, like, whose name is Erin, and she is just continually chipping away at Sarah's self-esteem with just these backhanded like compliments and just like I said, just constantly denigrating her with these little offhand comments that she makes. She's like super cunty. Now, even though Sarah has all of these problems and insecurities and stuff like that, she does actually manage to pull off kind of a decent audition for a horror movie, which is casting, called The Silver Scream. And this movie is supposedly produced by this kind of long-running, well-known production company, which is called Astraeus Films. Only problem is when she goes into the casting thing, like she does a good job, but her performance really isn't anything special. It's just kind of like, it's good, but it's just like all the others, you know what I mean? She doesn't super stand out. So she actually just kind of gets dismissed by the super creepy like casting agents. It's like a man and a woman, and they're like really creepy. They're just like, thank you, next, you know what I mean? So it's that kind of shit. So after this audition, she kind of knows that she whiffed it, so she goes into the bathroom, like, in this building or whatever, and just fucking loses it. So like I said, she's just in the thing, and she's just primal screaming and just yanking her hair out and all this other kind of shit. And wouldn't you know it, but the woman, the female casting agent, comes in the bathroom and sort of witnesses this freak out that she's having. And so the woman is now, she's like super interested because she's like, oh, maybe this girl does have like something to offer, you know what I mean? She's like, why don't you come back to the casting office and reenact this tantrum that you had for us, because we want to see the real you. So as the movie goes on, Sarah gets callbacks just for more auditions, and everyone just gets kind of weirder and sketchier, until she eventually gets called to meet the producer of this movie, The Silent Scream, who is just this overly tanned, you know, leering old creep who, very predictably, wants to make essentially like a Faustian bargain with Sarah. Basically asking her to give herself up, both body and soul, for fame. Is essentially what the deal is. So it really shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that Sarah is not really being recruited for a horror movie per se, but she's kind of being initiated into like a satanic cult of Hollywood elites. And of course, this cult is going to require sacrifice in order to achieve the final transformation, which will be from kind of like a struggling nobody actress and also restaurant waitress to kind of a very glamorous like Tinseltown screen idol. So like I said, it's kind of like a Faust story. So as I said, because it's like a Faust story, you know, and the plot is like that, it's not like, you know, it's kind of like familiar territory. It's a story that's been done a lot of times, but that is absolutely not a ding against it. Honestly, the whole fun of this movie is kind of watching Sarah just horribly spiral downward as she pretty much just like siphons off little bits of her soul to kind of like achieve her ultimate dream of fame. She wants to be a movie star, you know what I mean? So she actually does accept the cult's invitation. And after that, this is where the body horror shit comes in, because at this point she starts to physically deteriorate. I mean, to just an appalling degree. I mean, so much so that you're watching it and you're kind of like revolted, but you're also kind of intrigued. You're just kind of like, you don't really want to see like whatever disgusting indignity is going to happen to her body next, but you're also, it's also like a train wreck. Like, you can't really like look away from it. Like, it's pretty gross. And I gotta say too, again, like, Alex Essoe is like fucking outstanding in this. She just fucking goes for it, man. It's just like, there is really something about an actress that is willing to lay themselves bare like this. I mean, she puts like real maggots in her mouth. It's just, I mean, she fucking goes the distance, and it's like, I totally respect that. And I think like her performance too, it's so, like, as I watched her in it, I kind of found myself, you kind of hate her because she's weak, she's naive, she's willing to give up everything just for this, what seems like a shallow goal. But at the same time, you also empathize with her because she's kind of like an outsider. She's very insecure. She's got a lot of problems, and you can kind of sympathize with the way that she feels about herself, and like, kind of, you know, you kind of want to take care of her because she's kind of like hates herself so much. And, you know, and the fact that she's willing to do all this stuff to like achieve her dream, and you're almost kind of like, you hate her, but you're also kind of like rooting for her at the same time. And like, you're kind of like hoping that she gets what she wants, even though she has to do all this fucked up shit to get it. And I mean, the fact that I could feel all of these emotions about her at once, I mean, that's kind of like really a testament to Alex Essoe's acting performance in this, which is just amazing. It's just really, really good. And I mean, not to shit on the other actors too, because pretty much all the other actors in this are also great. And I thought one of my favorite things about it was that I thought it was great how even characters like Aaron, who was the cunty friend, and the Big Taters manager, whose name was Carl, he was actually played by Pat Healy, who's in like tons and tons of movies, that were kind of supposedly villains or antagonists, at least from Sarah's point of view, because they were like in the way of her goals. But even they were given like a lot of humanity and a lot of dimension. Like, even though they did and said like some shitty things, and like I said, were kind of standing in her way, they did still genuinely care about her well-being, which made, you know, the act of her kind of like viciously turning on them near the end like all the more devastating, because everyone was very three-dimensional, like very fleshed out, you know. Gotta say too, the special effects in this are really, really good. Sarah's bodily disintegration, like I said, very grotesque, very nauseating. Like I said, it's just teeth. It's super gross. It's super gross. Also, it has like some pretty really nasty, like brutal violence in it. And the way it's portrayed is just very unsettling because it's very like matter of fact. There was one kill in particular, like toward the end, where, I mean, the camera just like doesn't even flinch as someone's head just gets pounded into pulp, which I had a hard time watching it, to be honest. It was pretty fucking rough. But yeah, so that's all great. The film actually has like a great score and really, really good sound design, which, you know, are things that I really appreciate when they stand out to me. So I feel like just putting all those things together, and this was just like this was a blast of a movie. You know, and I know that everybody has different opinions, and I've know some people had seen it and they didn't really care for it and stuff like that. But this is actually probably one of my favorite horror films, like from the last decade or something like that. There's something about it that like really resonated with me. And like I said, I thought it was really, it had like something for everybody. Like I said, it kind of had like a throwback vibe to it, like a Rosemary's Baby-ish satanic cult kind of thing. But then it was also kind of modern, had kind of like a little bit of a, you know, dark Hollywood kind of thing to it. Like I said, had a little bit of subtle black humor, which I was kind of into. So, and it had all that gore, the body horror and shit like that was really good. So it really just kind of had, it was just like a good balanced mix of everything, and I really, really dug it. So, I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, if anything I said about that like sounds super intriguing or anything, you should definitely check it out. Don't watch it if you're squeamish. I'm gonna say probably don't watch it while you're eating. You know what I mean? I'm just, because I've seen it like 3 or 4 times, and it's not the grossest thing I've ever seen, but it is kind of like, ugh, you know what I mean? There is some kind of like revolting shit in it. So it's like, you know, like I said, if you're squeamish, you might not dig it. But other than that, I try to like recommend it to most people that ask me for recommendations if they haven't seen it, especially if they like 70s satanic cult kind of stuff, because that's kind of where it's coming from. But yeah, I really dug this a lot. I'm not actually sure where it's streaming right now. It might be on Tubi, if I'm not mistaken. I think the first time I saw it, I might have seen it on Shudder, but I don't know if it's on there anymore. But usually the movies from this era, like, they come and go on Tubi, so you should probably check and see if it's on there. But I really like this a lot. Like I said, it came out in 2014, and it's called Starry Eyes. And please let me know what you thought about it in the comments, if you've seen it, if you liked it, didn't like it, or whatever. And that will do it for this Flickers of Fear, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Bye.